The dream of the Four-peat is alive for the Vancouver Whitecaps, celebrating with their fans after a 4-0 victory here tonight. Thomas Mueller wasn't needed in this one, gentlemen, so Jesper Sorensen opting to keep him on the bench. They will move on and try to do what only one other team has been able to do, and that is win 4 straight national titles. As we welcome you back inside our One Soccer studio, Andy Petrillo, Gareth Wheeler, Christian Jack with you. We weren't quite sure how this game would go. We asked a lot of questions. We knew that the Vancouver Whitecaps were the favorites, but we wondered if they would go out and put an emphatic stamp and make their way to the final, or Forge, who's only lost twice this year, would give them a battle and dispatch yet another MLS club in this tournament. Well, we have our answer now, Wheels, but let's begin with the Vancouver Whitecaps and just once again saying why they are the favorites and then showing it.
That was a demolition job. The Whitecaps destroyed Forge, and I don't think we've been able to say that about a Forge team in any competition really for a couple of years. Perhaps in the CONCACAF Champions League, but it's right at the beginning of the season. But a Forge team who's been in rhythm, has played MLS teams quite well. They were just completely destroyed by the Vancouver Whitecaps, which one speaks to the strength of the Whitecaps. Like, this is the best Canadian team in Major League Soccer, at least since 2018-2019, that was Toronto FC. And when they were at the height of their powers, we're seeing something really special come together under Jesper Sorensen for these Whitecaps. We saw it in the CONCACAF Champions League. It's carried over despite a rash of injuries in Major League Soccer, and players continue to step up. Forge just weren't at it tonight. And perhaps the blips in the 2 losses in their last 3 games, perhaps they've just hit a little bit of a rut, hit a little bit of a wall, because tonight, just when it came to athleticism, being first to the ball, showing commitment in defending, especially the off-ball stuff, KJ, they just weren't at the races. And that's why I think when Bobby Smyrniotis speaks after this, I think he's just going to be very disappointed in his team's overall performance here tonight.
Yeah, I'm going back to the first leg in Hamilton when I was there, and the interviews I was doing before the game, and I spoke to Brian Wyatt, I spoke to Jesper Sorensen, and at that moment, the Whitecaps were in a difficult space. Actually, it was that night that Thomas Mueller flew in to Vancouver, and he saw the game at the airport, and they said to me at that moment they didn't feel like they were in rhythm. They'd had some key injuries. Ali Ahmed hadn't played since the Gold Cup. They'd had a lot of injuries in the summer. That was a different Whitecaps team today. And I think we knew when we all left Hamilton, and I knew that a lot of Forge fans thought this, that it was the moment that they needed to get at a little bit of advantage from the first leg. So at least you go into tonight thinking, okay, well, we're going to get a better Whitecaps, but even if things don't go our way early, we've got that advantage from the first leg. But the moment that it started to snowball pretty quickly in that first half was disappointing. Now, we talked about it from the pre-game show about how close the CPL teams have been traditionally to MLS teams. I think the number is 26 of 33 decided by 1 goal or less. This is the worst ever. This is tied for the worst ever. I remember York got beat, I think, 4 years ago this week by TFC in the quarterfinals 4-0. So it is uncharacteristic to see a Forge team get outplayed at that level and of the domination that they've seen. But to your point, you know, and I was at the games when they got beat both back-to-back years in Montreal. It wasn't quite as a demolition as this, nowhere near. But to your point, the caliber that the Whitecaps are playing at right now, regardless who's playing for them, the level that they're set every game, you could see why they're a contender for winning MLS.
That's why the result doesn't surprise me. It's just the manner by which it played out. Like, I guess we've just grown accustomed to expecting more, even when they step up in weight class. What Forge regularly brings to the table, the superior organization. It seems like they're in control of games, even when they concede a bad goal here or there. But tonight it all raveled really quickly. It's like that first goal went in and everyone kind of lost their composure. Some of the players were kind of going at one another. It was just a completely different makeup of this Forge side. And the fact that Bobby Smyrniotis threw in the towel 60 minutes in, basically taking off players with eyes for the weekend against Atletico Ottawa, a potential title decider in terms of the regular season, the CPL. I mean, that said it all. Vancouver were just in a completely different stratosphere than this one.
Yeah, and with the Forge having the first real early chance and that not going in, you just felt it was a change in temperature a little bit, and the Vancouver Whitecaps never really looked back. So they will move on. October 1st will be that final, and they now await their opponent. Vancouver FC Atletico Ottawa will play Thursday, 7 p.m. ET. right here on One Soccer. Let's hear from one of the Vancouver Whitecaps in this game today who had an impact, Jayden Nelson.
Jayden, big win for your team. You're into another Canadian Championship final. What did you like about the performance, and what does it mean to be able to, continue to defend your four-peat?
Yeah, it's huge. I think you can see in the last 2 games against Valor and Forge where we started off pretty slow. And I think today we showed our quality and why we're the better team. And yeah, the scoreline shows it. And this was a professional performance and a mature performance, and we're happy about it.
And, what'd you make your goal? You haven't scored in a while, so how was that to get that? And just the play with Rayan down the right side?
Yeah, it's huge. It's a sense of relief. I hope they start raining down now, but even with the national team, I've been missing little chances, and I felt like I'm unlucky, but this was a big one for me, so I'm very happy.
So what do you make of the team? Obviously get a big win on the weekend. You get another big result here. You got a tough trip away this weekend. What's work with the group, and how's that momentum like?
Yeah, this was the mentality. I think we took a little dip after losing against Miami in Cruz Azul in the CONCACAF finals, but I think now it's important to have a good run of games of wins and a good performances going to the last stretch for the playoffs. So yeah, this was a good performance, and we just need to keep going.
And I guess what's the message from you guys? You guys get to host the next final, in less than a month. What does it mean that the other teams have to go through you to win that cup?
Yeah, we want to win. Especially because the Vancouver team as well. We want to win, and I think it would be good for the morale for the team to win something before playoffs. So it would be good, and yeah, we can't wait for that.
Awesome. Thanks, Jane.
A little wave at the end there. Getting used to speaking to Jayden Nelson, and he does put it, quite succinctly there. They were not good in those first legs against Valor and Forge, but then they come out and they show their quality, and boy, did they ever do that here today, because as mentioned, even though Forge had the early chance, it was actually Vancouver who struck first, 7th minute, and they never looked back. In fact, 2 of the goals scored in that first half, and then right away to start that second half, they kept on going, KJ.
Yeah, I mentioned it at halftime. It's a disappointing goal to give away. I go back to some big moments for Forge in big games, and we've given them all the flowers they need, but it has been said that too many times they've considered set-piece goals in big moments. They did it in the first leg. They did it against TFC last year in the 89th minute when they got that away goal that came back to cost them. They've done it in the Champions Cup. I was in Guadalajara when they've done it there in the first few minutes of that game too. And Kalela has been great this season in the CPL play, but he'll be disappointed with his positioning. And he had a really good game, Gareth, but he'll be disappointed in that.
We asked Bobby Smirniotis about that yesterday. Why do you what happened in the first leg when you conceded some cheap goals when you stepped up in competition? He says the game sometimes moves faster, but KJ, in a moment like that, the goalkeeper misjudged. But at the far post, Alexander Janssen, is a beast in CPL terms. But you're going up against bigger, faster, and stronger. And Tristan Blackman is an absolute handful. We'll get into the devastating injury a little bit later on, which really puts a blemish on the night. That's his 5th goal, his 2nd goal in this tie for this season for Tristan Blackman. He's been that good on set pieces. He's been phenomenal. And it's not the only set piece that ended up costing the Forge in this one tonight. Details. That was what was repeated time and time again in the build-up to this match by Bobby Smirniotis and Kyle Becker. It's about the details. And if you get the details wrong in the 7th minute, it just kind of unraveled after that.
Yeah, 28th minute, and Gando ends up getting the goal. Yeah,
I think they may even be more disappointed in the manner when they scored this one, because this was a random goal, as Bobby Smirniotis would like. Came from a throw-in. You can see the number of opportunities just to kind of check it, but see the bounce of the ball there. Didn't quite keep the ball, and they're just not quite at the level. You can see Janssen running back to his goal at that moment. Then they start to turn on the face. And it's a fine finish. I'm happy for Ngando because I thought he had a really good game, and he was placed in that position when Muller plays in that 10. It was interesting to me that without Muller playing in the game, they didn't go back to their 4-3-3. They still played that system with 2 6s, and they asked Ngando, who's a bit more of a midfielder than Muller ever is, to play in that role, but he operated in between the lines. I thought he had a good game, and remember, he didn't have a good game in the Champions Cup final, in the CONCACAF Champions Cup final in Mexico City when they had a howler and he got removed early in that game. So not quite redemption, but I was happy for him in a big moment.
I think Ngando's had a really good season overall. When he was drafted, using an international spot on that player, wasn't quite sure about, a little bit of an older player, but I think that he's fit the role. What's interesting is it provides Sorensen another option. Sorensen's been brave in rotating his squad through all of these competitions, and he's confident that he can put different players in and do the job. What you lose when Thomas Muller's in the game is a little bit of the ability to press.
Right.
You lose some athleticism. You lose how good this team was from that aspect of the game before his arrival. And that kind of was more like the old school CONCACAF Champions Cup Vancouver Whitecaps we saw tonight.
I think we can say this, and maybe people will laugh at us, but I think now it's over. We could probably say that Bobby Smirnios was probably looking forward to managing against Muller, and in a way that he felt that if Muller played with the front four, there would be ways with the way that Forge play to exploit them. I'm not saying that Muller playing would have made the Whitecaps worse. No, right. I understand what that sounds like.
Different
but
style.
Forge, to the way that they want to play with the game, I think they were quite looking forward to having Muller defend against them in that way. It didn't work.
It was a smart addition to the 11, putting Gondo in that position and maintaining that formation. That's just the third game that they played that in a row. Typically, before Thomas Muller arrived, they were playing a much different formation in 4-3-3. I know it's the subtleties here, but Ngondo has the legs to kind of play more of that role.
I know we're talking a lot about the players, and rightfully so, just what the Vancouver Whitecaps have been able to do. But, Jesper Sorensen, and also just getting lineups right, and somebody coaching in the MLS for the first time. I mean, you could argue coach, game, but still leagues are different, and he's nailing it.
He's been brilliant, and I don't know whether he'll get enough down south, but he should be, for me, MLS Coach of the Year. He's that good. That's
a conversation we'll have. But the onslaught continued, KJ, in the second half here. We thought, okay, maybe pep talk, halftime, something will turn for Forge. Not so much.
Yeah, this is just contributing to your own downfall. Again, the player has had a really good season. Ibrahimovic is just pulling his shirt right away. You can see the referee. He had a conversation, I think Adam and Jordan mentioned in conversation. He'd had a conversation warning them about that in the first half as well. So just, that was game, set, match. You come out at halftime, we talked about it. Bobby Smirnios, I've heard a number of his halftime talks. Gareth is saying, look, guys, it's been difficult first half, but we get one. It's a 90-minute game. We've only won one away. And then once that happens, it's over.
Sebastian Berhalter, how good has he been this season? Again, just another player. I think that people understood that he had potential, but to be this good and how important he has been, I think it's fitting he gets a goal tonight, the first game that he wears the captain's armband. Nice moment for him. But I'm spinning back to the penalty that was conceded. The player that was brought down inside the area is Bilal Halbouni. And he has the potential now to be a little bit of an unsung hero for the Whitecaps, because early in the season, he was sitting, wasn't playing a lot. He was like the fourth choice
Didn't even get in the first leg until
bingo. Yeah. He's a player that's been on the radar for quite some time. John Herdman called him up to a Canada camp. He didn't end up playing in that Canada camp when he was over in Germany. He was actually a member of the Western Mustangs, my alma mater, where I played. Don't roll your eyes.
But I didn't. I just looked at the camera.
I'm telling you, this just shows you how different players take different paths to get to the highest level.
You can see him after the game with his mate Babouli.
The Syrian connection there. I mean, he went to Germany. He ended up doing his ACL over there, went through some tough times. But I'll tell you this. I looked at some of the movement with the Whitecaps bringing in two center backs. Halbouni would have been a fit on either Toronto FC or CF Montreal. A big player with potential who needs to play. But guess what? He's looked very much the part alongside Tristan Blackman. And now if Blackman's out, what does that mean? It means Halbouni's going to have that much more of a window or an opportunity to shine. And I really rate the player. Yeah. Here they are there. I mean, Halbouni, a lot of his family and friends were at the game in Hamilton last month. So I rate the player.
He had a big moment in the Champions Cup as well this year, didn't he? So,
bingo. And we've been doing this, all of us have been doing this for a long time. We always love the journey of players like this and what it takes to get to this level. And now he has a real opportunity. I thought he was excellent tonight.
I agree.
Well, one of the players we talked about at halftime when it came to the 2026 team for Canada at FIFA World Cup was Jayden Nelson, and he's been looking really good for the Whitecaps in MLS, also in this tournament, and he just kind of puts the nail in the coffin here.
Yeah, again, this is not a slight on Jayden, but it was a game made for Jayden. It was wide open, it was stretched, it was a game where you needed to use your pace. Happy for him to get his goal. I think he deserved it, to be frank. And he looked like a player who's just full of confidence right now, getting his opportunities. You can see You know, there's a lot of competition for places in that team, but I thought it was great that they played him and Ali Ahmed both together today. And you can see what it meant to him. He gets the chance to go to the final. I spoke to Jaden Nelson after the first leg, and this is a competition that means a lot to him. You know, he has played in a final before, as have Forge, but there's that asterisk, right? It's the 2020 final that was played in 2022. It wasn't necessarily a competition that led to a big way up a pathway here. He's come back home. He's chosen the Whitecaps to win trophies and make a key difference. And we have to remember, this is the Canadian Championship. There's rules in place to allow the Canadian players to play. Not that he would be not playing anyway, but I thought he was excellent. And this is just the example of what he's transmitting from the national team into his club form. He's got the form and the confidence right now.
What I like about Nelson, we've known him for a long time when he went and played for Canada at the Under-17 World Cup. A player that you always knew had talent and ability, but just when it would click. And I think the big thing now is that time overseas, I think it's hardened his mentality.
For sure.
Because there's a consistency of his game. And he's a lot different than other players, both in the Canada squad as well as this one, because he's a true out-and-out winger. Where Ali Ahmed's comfortable coming inside and playing that way. It's the pace. He gets players going backwards on the back foot, and then they get lost. It's been a breakout campaign. I also think that a lot of this has to do with the good vibes that came in the first game of the season against Portland Timbers.
Sure.
Things can kind of circle or snowball in a positive way when you get off to such a good start with a brand new team. So I think the manager, Sorensen's, helped him out a lot as well. And look, if you were to tell me 6-7 months ago that Jaden Nelson would be right in the mix for a spot in the 2026 World Cup, I'd be like, are you sure? Like, what needs to happen to make that the case? A number of injuries? No. Jaden Nelson's earning his way into the mix, so well done to him.
Sorensen, again, deserves a ton of credit for that.
100%.
It's part of maturing. He was so young, even playing for TFC, just so young, and then going overseas, coming back, he's grown into, you know, a man. That's what I say. It goes from a boy to a man, and this is what we're seeing here with Jaden Nelson. That's all great. We've been talking about all the good things that have happened here tonight for the Vancouver Whitecaps, but near the end of this match, it's what you don't want to see. You've been alluding to it. Blackman goes down with this injury, such a key component to this Vancouver Whitecaps team. And it looks like as he's trying to get up, I know we always say, I hate to play doctor, but as he's trying to get up, it looks like his trailing leg is what gives out on him. So that would be his right leg. And as he was leaving the field, you know, Wheels, he was being helped off, and he was putting zero pressure on that right leg.
I feel sick to my stomach. We're all watching it, and we just gasped. We said, oh no. 3-0 game. Really, the tie, the fixture, the tie is done and dusted. And then a player who's critically important to the Vancouver Whitecaps' chances goes down in a moment like that. I mean, he's been a player that's been so good for so many years and is finally getting recognized for his contributions. MLS All-Star, U.S. Men's National Team call-up, scores big goals for this team. Really the guy that, like, everything breaks out from, with Ranko Veselinovic going out. You're relying on Tristan Blackman to go out in a moment like that. It looked awful. I would say, we were saying this at the time, if a player cannot move, don't bother with 2 trainers around the shoulder. Just put him on a stretcher. Get him off the field. I mean, we see this all the time. I hope that this isn't the case, that the Whitecaps won the battle tonight but have lost the war. Because if you lose Tristan Blackman, it's not just about the Can Champ. It's about the Shield.
Well,
it's about MLS Cup.
It's way more than the Can Champ.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's just what this means from here. They brought in Pupa and Sean Liu to help solidify the defense. But if you lose Tristan Blackman, you got to question, like, what does that back four
He's
look
irreplaceable,
like? Yeah.
Let's be honest. He's been that good. He's the kind of player that makes everybody else around him better. Veselinovic, he's a big loss. He's the captain. He's a different kind of player. Blackman made him better. He's just a pure example of the Whitecaps and the way that they've just raised their ability all year. He's got better with that as well. And you could just see at the end of the game, Jesper Sorensen had a very, very worried look on his face. Very concerned look on his face. And I think, look, the game was in the bag for a long time, but that was what was in the forefront of his mind, because obviously Tristan Blackman at that moment, that's the last thing. This is a team, serious team, that can win a Supporters' Shield and be very, very close to winning an MLS Cup. Mm-hmm. That is on the ability for them going forward in the next 2 months. And that could end up being the reason why they don't do either.
They're getting some of these players. The two new defensive recruits are going to be back by the end of the month.
Gold's back almost in training now, so that's a good thing.
They've done it this season without Gold. Atakubi's gone out. Brian White's missed substantial time.
Veselinovic is done.
Veselinovic. And to consider that they're still in this position, look, it's that next man up mentality. Sorensen has used his squad incredibly well, but you just have to think that this might be one injury too many.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, tough one to see here, but his team does walk away with that 4-0 victory. So they are into the final, looking to get that four-peat, and then they'll find out who they will be facing at the end of Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern. Atletico Ottawa, Vancouver FC. Vancouver not doing well in CPL, yet shocking Atletico Ottawa taking leg one 3-1. So a lot of work to do for Atletico Ottawa, who's sitting second in the CPL. A dominant performance by the Vancouver Whitecaps. The shots 22-8, 9-2 target, but that's the scoreline, 4-0. Forge, who have only suffered 2 losses all season long, heading into this one. That is a shocking result. He is head coach Bobby Smirniotis.
Yeah, these games are always about small details, right? You know, you give up a goal early on a set piece. That's a small detail. It's different from the run of play and so on. And then, to be honest, I think in the first half the game opened up, but it also opened up quite well for us, especially on the right side with Ampoma. We just couldn't take advantage of it. You know, very good situations on the switch, something we had planned and wanted to use. But in that first half, you need to be able to score. You know, you need to be able to get that, and you need to just stay away from the small mistakes. So we had some confidence, you know, entering the second half, that we knew we were going to be able to create those situations. And then you have a sucker punch in the 48th minute, right? That makes this game difficult against what is a very good team. And you know, we learned this in the past when you're playing a team that's playing at the top of their game, and we've seen that in our time in Champions League as well. That you can't let those details dictate the game. So, you know, one goal off of a corner, another one off of a penalty, makes it very difficult against a very good football playing team and a confident team.
They're good, they're confident. Now, if you're Atletico Ottawa, Vancouver, you're looking at this and you know what you're going to be up against.
Yeah, football playing team is what he just said. And that's what Forge are. And Forge don't get very many football playing teams against them. I'll give them a lot of credit. You know, they went into this game, you know, with Wright and Babuli and Borges and Ampoma, and other CPL teams may turn around and say that's naive, you got to play someone else. That is the Forge way, and you live and die with it. Today, they fell on the sword.
Sunday, a game to get back on track.
Yeah.
Need to have short memories here. Atletico Ottawa Forge, and Atletico Ottawa, meanwhile, have a 2-goal deficit to make up on Thursday night in order to have the chance to knock off that Whitecaps side in the
Ottawa and
final.
Forge 7 games away, maybe from still a double, like domestically, and Ottawa's still going for this Rebels, so it's exciting.
Still a lot to play for in the season, that's for sure, but the journey in the Canadian Championship does come to an end for Forge, and it continues for the Vancouver Whitecaps. The next semi-final will be on Thursday. Will it be Ottawa or another Vancouver team in the final? You've been watching the second leg of the TELUS Canadian Championship right here on One Soccer. On behalf of everyone here, I'm Manny Petrillo. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you Thursday.